Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, Mr. and Lady, I want to say thank you all for tuning into Kinetic Aesthetic. I am your host, Germ, and today we're going to be talking about something a little sad, a little unfortunate. We, of course, are discussing the unfortunate passing of legendary neo soul singer D'Angelo. Now, for those of you who are unfamiliar with D'Angelo, he was bigger in the 90s, early 2000s. That was really when he had success. He is most remembered for the one of the more infamous videos. Not that it was anything crazy, but it was just he was the guy who had the music video of him naked, staring into the camera, just singing all sensually. That's D'Angelo. And it's actually crazy because when I was first hearing about his passing, that was immediately, of course, the first thing that went back to my mind. That was really all I remembered him being as. But there was a lot more to his career. There was a lot more to it. I didn't even know that wasn't even his first album. He came out in the mid 90s. And so just I wanted to do with this episode is I wanted to go over this man's life and just go over his legacy because the more I read about him, the more I understood about what he stood for and what he thought was important, the more I really sort of was able to understand how important he actually was and how this was a real loss. D'Angelo was a true artist in every sense of the word. He was somebody that had a lot of respect for the arts and especially the music. And he was somebody who was really about his craft. And we're going to get into it later, but he didn't want to be remembered for anything provocative or antics. He wanted people to be fans of him because they were fans of his music. And that's something that was probably instilled in him at a young age. And we're just going to start from the beginning because growing up out of Richmond, Virginia, south side of Richmond, Virginia, he was able to understand that music was so important because he grew up in the church. He grew up on that choir. So, and he's even quoted as saying this, he understood that music is powerful and that what you're doing with it is very important. And that just played a big part. That whole theme played a big part in his career and the way that it went. And growing up out of Virginia, he gets noticed at a young age. He ends up getting signed to a deal. By 18, he's already in New York, going and doing his thing. And the success wasn't immediate. He had to develop buzz. He had to generate a lot of interest in himself. He had to start off just writing songs on soundtracks, and I don't even think that he wasn't even performing. And eventually, that led to him getting his own record deal. That led to him getting his own studio time, and he was able to make his own music. He released his first album, Brown Sugar, back in 1994, and like I said, it wasn't an immediate success. He was able to go and do a tour and everything. It got him buzz. It was enough to really make himself a name, but it wasn't anything that was going to take him to superstar. And it was during this time period after that first album, after he went on the tour with it, develops writer's block. Anybody who trust me, I know a lot about writer's block. I know about a lot about how hard it is. So that is it's very annoying and it's very brain racking because you want to get your ideas out, you want to get them coherently put down, and it's like the words or the ideas or the way to make them all coherent never comes. So that was the struggle for him. But eventually he's able to overcome that. And again, still having success. He was getting placements on a lot of people's albums. And after all that, when he really went on that run is when he eventually got Voodoo, which was his big album. This was released right at the top of the millennium in 2000. And the thing to note about this one is it's crazy because I just remember that Untitled, the music video of him naked, that was the third single. Like that wasn't even like the main single for the album, which is, and I say that to say, I highly doubt that was even what he wanted people to remember. Because I've always been under the impression when you're releasing an album, when you're going about there and you're dropping all this shit, you're not going to want your first song released or the first one that you tease. You want that to be the one that's sort of going to reflect on what you're talking about and what the album's theme is going to be. Or at least you want it to be something that's going to be more upbeat, that's going to get people moving. And that's all you really remember is Untitled. I don't really think that, and I don't think I ever even heard any other song. Because I remember growing up seeing this music video on BET, on VH1, and MTV, and I don't remember hearing any other song by him. I don't remember seeing any of the other ones or anything like that. And so it became the type of thing where you get typecast, where you get one good song, and I guess there are probably people who really think he was just a one-hit wonder because that's all they remember and that's all they know. And there's a lot more talent there. There was a lot more space. He was an albums artist. He wasn't even a single artist. But after this album, after all of that, it really caused him to become a recluse. He started to develop problems with drug and alcohol. He also had a close friend of his who committed suicide during around this time. And you got all of this shit going on with him, and it really just fucked up his whole career because he just you when you combine just the uncomfortableness of just having to try to fight this narrative that you are one thing when you are really just more than that. Then on top of that, you're dealing with personal struggles and you're dealing with death. And on top of that, you have record label executives who I imagine probably were not the most understanding, who weren't actually really giving him the best support during all this time. He wasn't even really talking to his family around this time either. It's really understandable how somebody like that can go become a recluse. He really took the Lauryn Hill route. Like him and Lauryn Hill have very similar career arcs, in my opinion. And it really would have been that way. That would have been the story. That would have been where the story ended if it would not been for him making a comeback back in, I want to say it was 2014 with the Black Messiah. He got together with the band that he had formed. He formed a whole album. I'm actually excited to listen to it because I remember hearing about an album called The Black Messiah, but I actually never listened to it. So for me, this is going to be my first time hearing it. Like I'll listen to it. I'll probably have a review for that by next week. That was that was just his way of making a comeback, and I guess making an album on his own terms. And it's actually really sad to say this. I was researching this. He actually was in the process of recording a whole new album before he passed away. So that is probably going to be released posthumously. But yeah, like later in life, and this was something that he wasn't really publicizing. He was supposed to be headlining a festival, but didn't because of medical complications. But pancreatic cancer was what he was dealing with. Fuck cancer. I'm just going to say that right now. It is the worst disease. I don't wish it on nobody. But yeah, unfortunately, he had the pancreatic cancer and he fought. He was in hospice for the last 2 months of his life. And he unfortunately was not able to win that fight. And so when I think about the legacy that this man leaves behind, I think for me, it all goes back to I always have respect for people who are able to choose their integrity and their morals over the money, over the art. So for me, D'Angelo is somebody who embodies that. This is somebody who had a strong faith, who had a strong belief in just in the power of music. And so for me, I look at him as someone who is able to recognize that what he wanted was not to just be some sex symbol, was not to be the guy that just remembered for being naked on the TV or being just the provocative sex symbol. He wanted to be an artist, and I empathize with that. I respect that, and I fuck with that. And we're losing that energy. You know, I was just having this conversation the other day where I really feel like we are getting to a point now where everyone is choosing music, especially this is like when I'm talking about black art, I'm talking about hip hop, I'm talking about R&B. We're getting farther and farther away from people who have true love for the art form, and we're getting more and more into just people who are trying to take advantage for monetary gain. The music is not what's important. The expression is not what's important. Trying to change the world is not what's important. It's more so for these motherfuckers about, and I'm not gonna hold that against nobody. It's more so I'm trying to get some bread. I'm trying to change my life experience. I'm trying to change what I'm going through, and I have no problem with that. But there's just such a lack of respect for the art. There's such a lack of respect for the integrity of this shit that I think that we're losing, and that's something that we had with someone like D'Angelo. And so, if his legacy is anything, it's the legacy that you got to stay true to this shit. You have to understand that if you are creating art, if you are doing anything, your influence and the power that you wield is important. And that goes for anybody that's doing anything. Rest in peace to D'Angelo. We lost him way too soon. He was somebody who had a lot more music to give. I feel like his 51, he still had a whole second half of his career that he could have given us. So it's sad. We lost somebody. We lost a real legend today. Make sure if you have any time today, make sure you go put on the Black Messiah. Make sure you put on Brown Sugar. Make sure you put on Voodoo Child. D'Angelo deserves his streams. He deserves his flowers because he gave us a lot of great art. A lot of great art that we're going to need to remember and we're going to need to cherish. But this has been Kinetic Aesthetic. I want to say thank you all for tuning in and checking me out. Make sure you like, follow, subscribe on whatever platform that you're listening to me in on. And you have a wonderful rest of your day. Drink water and tell your loved ones that you love them.